Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me in the rather extraordinary garage of my friend 458 Destroyer. Now I came out to visit here about 6 months ago earlier in the GT Black Series tour, and in fact had been to visit before. There are some amazing cars in this garage, some of which I've been lucky enough to drive, and in fact we're going to be talking today about this, the LaFerrari, and this is a particularly special example of the LaFerrari. But now that we know a little bit more about what's coming next in this fairly famous lineage of Ferraris, in fact I drove 458 Destroyer's F40 on my last visit out here, I think we can talk a little bit more about it. And I tell you what, when I initially saw the LaFerrari way back, it launched, well, literally a decade ago now, in fact a decade ago this month. It's crazy how time flies. I wasn't completely sold on it, but in recent years, and especially when I drove this car just over 2 years ago, things changed a little bit. Things changed actually quite a lot, and today I want to get to the bottom of that. So let's get it unplugged, let's get it started up, let's head out for a drive in 458 Destroyer's LaFerrari. I have to say, as Ferrari lineups go, that's a pretty cool view right now. The F40 alongside the LaFerrari. Then we have the 812 GTS, the 458 Speciale, the Portofino, and a 599 GTO as well. But I tell you what, this is a garage and a half, a complete mix of cars. The crazy power that you have from the likes of the Viper and the twin turbo STO. We have a Carrera GT, LFA Nürburgring edition, the JDM cars, some of Paul Walker's cars, some that I've taken out before, and some that might be coming soon. Now, as we take a look around, I remember one thing from last time. People were commenting about the lights, the overwhelming look of the hex lights up above. But I tell you what, it's not as bright in person as it comes across on the videos, because of course you're not literally looking up, you're looking at the cars where you get these fabulous reflections. And I want to do something a little bit like this with a part of the Schmuseum back at home. But the F40 was special. In fact, this whole lineage of Ferraris has been special, starting with the 288 GTO, then the F40, F50, Enzo, LaFerrari, and very soon the successor to the LaFerrari. Now, before we get onto that, let's take a better look at this particular car, because it's painted in Rosso Fuoco fire red. It is a glorious multi-layer deep red paint. In fact, in here looks a little bit similar to Rosso Corsa, but much darker. And this particular car actually also has the extremely rare carbon fiber roof, exposed carbon fiber roof. Only 50 of the 500 actually had that originally installed. It was something pretty hard to get, and this car actually has it in the satin. Most of them actually have it gloss, so that makes it even more striking. But of course the LaFerrari mixes what you have back here, 6.3 litres of NA V12 with a hybrid system, hence why it's plugged in at the moment, 963 PS, 950 brake horsepower, and a thing that just sounds extraordinary. But obviously times move forwards. We've got the 6.5 litre V12 now that you find obviously in the 812, also in the Competizione, also in the Daytona, and that gives us a little bit of a clue as to what's next. But for now, I need to get this unplugged, get this started, take a listen, and when I say take a listen, wait for it, because this car also happens to have an exhaust system from Rift. It's going to sound even more bonkers than it already does, and it already sounded epic when I drove it 2 years ago. So let's get cracking on with that and get it pulled out and go out and drive the LaF. I have the key to happiness, but before we get to turn this and get the car started, to unplug it is kind of interesting, because it actually technically has two charging points, if you will. You have the high voltage battery, which is obviously this more hardcore socket, and then you have the regular 12 volt magnetic socket, which is for your normal battery that the car has. Close this up. There's a bit of a process to shutting this. Close that flap, pop that back on top, close this over the front of there, and then carefully put this out of the way. Very familiar with doing this from my SF90. Slightly different on the SF90 because it has just the one charging point in effect. But obviously this thing launched a decade ago. In fact, and I've spoken often about this, when the LaFerrari was presented and the covers were pulled off and Luca de Montezemolo was standing on the stage at the Geneva Motor Show in 2013, I was standing a few rows back, holding my camera up in the air over the top, desperate to get the video. And when I filmed that video, ran to a media room, got it edited and uploaded, if you searched YouTube at the time for the oldest video on the platform of the LaFerrari, it was my video of the unveil. It went live before Ferrari had even uploaded their own video, about 45 minutes after the covers came off. So I felt very close to this car since day one. I remember it so well that event, that day, everything about it. Early stages, obviously, of what I was getting up to. But as we pop open the door, it's just special. It's just so, so, so special. One of the things with this car is that your seat pads are part of the tub. You don't move the seat, you move the steering column and you move the pedal box down in the footwell. It's just unlike anything else, really, this thing. I can't believe it's a decade old, but let me try and swing myself into here. Fall back, you're so low inside this. Sitting right down on the ground. Oh. All right, get ready, and then I'm gonna press this button, and it's gonna sound good. Very, very good. A very quick one before we go out for a drive. When it comes to cars like these, super limited, rare machines around the world, often cars, as I speak about, that I've seen in different places, or perhaps I've even driven on different continents, I always look them up on Exclusive Car Registry. I love taking a look at the different specs, the stories, the things that you can find out about these kind of cars, the passion that we all share. So I thoroughly recommend, if you'd like to know more about these kind of things, go check out Exclusive Car Registry. For now, we're gonna hop out on the road. Here we are, the LaFerrari, and it's all about that engine note. The ripped exhaust, still with mini cats in here, screaming away. Of course, this follows such immense history of Ferraris, of their special supercars, now hypercars, and gives us a little bit more of a sign of what the future entails. You know, this was Ferrari's first hybrid. The SF90 came along as their first series production hybrid, then the 296, and this is where it's all about electrification for extra performance, and you feel that in this so much. That extra feel that you get through the rev range from the electric power. I put my foot down, and then the shove in the back on the shifts. We're going to find some slightly more open roads, but this is just drama and excitement from the off. It's so visceral, emotive, passion-driven, everything that you would expect from a flagship Ferrari. We're in race mode at the moment, so you get the faster shifts, you get all of the sound out of it. You can press bumpy road on the steering wheel, soften up the suspension, like in other Ferraris. If you're down in wet mode, it will give you the softest suspension. If you're all the way up, you can't turn that into bumpy road, because then you should probably be out on a racetrack. 7-speed dual clutch transmission. I'm yet to drive the new Daytona, which is of course heavily based on this, on having an NA V12, but without the hybrid elements. Now, what we know about the next hypercar, we've seen some test cars, some prototypes running around Maranello, is that they do sound like they have a V12. They will certainly be hybridized, because it will all be about performance. A road car at the end of the day. You know, this is a road car, not a race car. There's the FXXK and FXXK Evo, if you want the race derivative of this. But on the road, it feels so sharp and pinpoint precise. Ferrari always do a brilliant job of the steering and the engagement that you get with the car through the throttle, through the brake. Very twitchy and nervous, you could say, but keeping you on your toes in a way that really translates to the actual drive. And that's why when I drove this very car on these roads 2 years ago, these twists and turns through Tennessee, I was completely enamored by it, because out here, okay, yes, you hear lots of the stuff on the road bouncing off the carbon fiber tub. It's absolutely heavenly. It cruises through this environment in the most unreal way for a car that also has the power and performance that this actually does. Just every input you feel back, it communicates with you. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like a LaFerrari. And this is why I think whatever Ferrari do next is going to be totally, totally unbelievable, because to build on this base is such a great place to be from the very beginning. Just listen to this. I kind of just need to pinch myself for a moment and take in exactly what I'm doing, where I'm driving, and what's happening right now, because driving a LaFerrari through these kind of roads, with thanks to my friend 458 Destroyer, this is the stuff of dreams. This is literally what I dream about doing. Just blipping up and down through the gears. Let's find somewhere where it opens up a touch more to feed in more of that throttle just while we warm up the tyres a little bit. You know, you've got to play it slightly safe with these kind of things. It's so fast. Almost like a roller coaster as we go over this amazing bit of road that twists and turns with that soundtrack. What is going on? Listen to this. That's the red line. Absolute perfection. So let's talk a little bit more about what's coming next. What are Ferrari doing next? Obviously, they had this genius plan to create different lines of cars, and massive respect to them for this. The Icona series, with the Monza, the SP1 and SP2, and the Daytona, the SP3, which are about the emotive aspect. They're about naturally aspirated engines, they're about heritage design, they're about the history of the brand, they're about pulling all of that together. Obviously limited edition, multi-million dollar, multi-million euro, multi-million pound cars, each very, very impressive and incredible in their own right. One moment. But it's left this separation for the hypercar lineage to take a slightly different path, to be more about lap times, to be more about being incredibly impressive out on the racetrack, which is where, when you have, you know, take the 6.5 litre V12, let's assume, combine it with an electrical system offering a couple of hundred more horsepower, you're going to get to 1200, 1300 horsepower out of that kind of thing now. Make it lightweight, lots of carbon fibre, give it more aero. We've seen the big wing on the back. Ferrari actually taking a slightly different design line with what comes next in terms of spoilers on the back of their cars compared to what we've had in the past, which I think is obviously the way that they need to go in terms of aerodynamics for maximum performance. And it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. The F250 is its code name. This was the F150. To many it was the kind of F70, 70th anniversary, following on from the Enzo, which would have been the F60 after the F40, F4 and F50. Obviously that system kind of makes sense, but they've now gone with F250 as its code named. And I tell you what, if it's taking this on further, if this launched today, this would be impressive. If this launched right now, I would be absolutely raving about what it's like to drive and to experience. I can't even begin to imagine what's going to be coming next. For a couple of seconds, I was thinking, you know, let's put it back into automatic, let's turn it down, go into maybe wet mode, you know, cruise with the LaFerrari, because you can take it easily. You know, it's a modern Ferrari, it drives well, pretty much anybody can jump in here, and it's a calm, sensible place to be. But then, do you know what? That's not really what today is about. We're going back up to race, we're going back to manual. I will keep it in bumpy road mode just because of the type of terrain that we're driving on. But just dropping this down the gears, it's not as lightning sharp as an 812 Competizione, for example, because this was still fairly early days, really, of the dual clutch transmission, if you think about it. But this thing is like a hybridized 458 on steroids. It's so quick, A to B. It is so fast when you put your foot down, but it's so easy to drive it fast as well. Like, just, it's confident, it's dependable, it's not squirming around, even though we've got fairly cold temperatures today, and, you know, coldish tyres. Have been driving for a few miles already, obviously. Just that constant soundtrack in the background, and then when the road drops and opens up slightly, absolutely phenomenal. I cannot get my head over this. I feel like at some point in my life I am going to need a LaFerrari in the garage. This platform is so me in a nutshell. I just enjoy driving it so much. The only problem is that these are £3 million, $3.5 million LaFerraris now. They started at around £1.2, I want to say, when it was brand new. And obviously nowadays, your Ferrari buying history obviously helps with the next cars, so one of these in the garage is a good way to begin when it comes to the next generation car. Obviously on top of that, the relationship with the dealer and attending Ferrari events and things. And I think the brand is so exciting. You know, cars like the SF90, the 812s, 812 comps, even the newly released Roma Spider, just a phenomenal thing in every segment that they approach. Each time I've taken a Roma out, they've been amazing. I'm just, you know, all the time I'm talking here, we have this going on in the background through these roads. It could not be a better day out. This is sheer perfection. This is absolutely unreal. 458 Destroyer is an absolute legend for letting me drive this today. I've taken out a few LaFerraris to date. I've been lucky to experience them in amazing places, from driving around Beverly Hills to an Aperta at sunset on Sardinia. And it's every time been a car that, like I said earlier, has just impressed me more and more than it did the previous time out. Just each time, so confident and so fast. Obviously the SF90, I would say, is even faster, to be completely honest. More electric power, more instant. But nobody's going to turn around and tell you this is a slouch. Nobody in their right mind ever. Oh, what a day, what a drive, what an experience. I just, you know, for me, my favorite Ferraris ever are the F50. I say that all the time, the F50, the gated manual with a V12, roof-off experience, followed by this, and that might be superseded if I drive a Daytona roof-off. Obviously, I'm comparing LaF and LaFerrari pretty much in the same boat, because the Daytona shaves away some of that electrified nature, a little bit less weight, but still, of course, with all of that going on at the same time. I mean, look at this as we twist through the roads here, up the hill, over the brow, V12 screaming. It doesn't get better. It genuinely does not get better. Here's a terrifying fact for you, for anybody saying, why don't you just buy one then? To buy a LaFerrari, I would need to sell my Zenvo, Senna, Ford GT, and SF90. That puts it into a little bit of perspective, because these things are always going to be collectibles. There's so much demand for limited edition Ferraris. There were only the original 499 plus one extra that they made of these. Obviously, there are just over 200 Apertas as well. But there are thousands of people around the world who love to collect Ferraris. You see a few in 458 Destroyer's garage. You see a few in pretty much any garage I visit. And that's, I think, a big thing that I'm dreaming of as well in the future, of growing more of a Ferrari collection. Because Ferrari is the brand, the definitive, iconic supercar brand, let's be real. And they make such amazing products. That do that. Oh, I'm in paradise right now. Absolute paradise. There's no other way to describe it. This is unbelievable. Well, parked up silently, as you heard, but I want to show you that actually because it's quite fun. Lots of people don't realise still that in the LaFerrari, when it's on, so let's say, obviously you get loads of beeps, Ferraris do like to do that, and with the doors, you've got to be careful not to let them slam all the way down. You get this feature called silent start, so if you start it now, that is effectively on e-power alone, but as soon as you touch the throttle, it will start the engine. So if you go into gear, or whatever you need to do, into reverse or whatever it is, it does that purely on e-power. Obviously we're parked right back to the charger at the moment, until you touch the throttle pedal and then it will start. I'm just going to actually turn that off for a moment. No, I'm going to keep it on because I want to show you a little bit more of the displays and things. You just have to get used to all of those beeps. There are so many of them. So technically it's on right now. On the control panel down here is where you can change the display, so you get completely different views. Like that, for example. You can see over to the left, you've got your info, but I like this balance really. You can have that completely digital view, or if you cycle back through, you've got this almost analog style rev counter in the center with the binnacle that wraps around it. Just looks really nice. I think they did that very, very, very well. and all of the other details in here, obviously completely stripped out. Alcantara, carbon fiber. You've got the full carbon footwells and door cards and everything. USB sockets and plugs dotted around, but not a whole lot else. This blade through the center with some of your controls, launch control, auto manual gearbox, reverse, all tucked in there. And obviously the Maranello on the steering wheel, which changes on the left side of the screen. And if you're super brave, you go there. If you're even more brave or arguably stupid, you go there, because that amount of power. ESC off, no thank you. We'll leave that in race. The other controls on this slightly squared off steering wheel. I'm gonna switch it off because we'll need to hop out, go put the key away safely and go and get this plugged back in. We can say farewell to it for now. But that has been so good. I also like to show you quickly while we're here, pop open this, the engine bay, or as much of the engine bay as you can access and see, because it's literally this glass window at the back, which then has a strut that comes down from there. But of course that is your V12 power plant mounted well in front of the rear axle, armed with all of the electrical stuff going on in there as well. And also right now, pretty warm, unsurprisingly. Really quite toasty after that little drive out, but we shall safely park all of this back away. I'll head round towards the other side to go and get it plugged back into the charger. You can leave them off charge for like a few days, but it's not really recommended. I've missed a trick. The button to do it is over on the driver's door, so I've got to go and do that first. I knew I'd left the door open for something. It's just tucked inside here. Pop that open and I can come around and get it plugged in. Strange phenomenon to plug in a Ferrari, but hey, this is where we're at with this. It's not too complicated. We've just got to reverse that whole process with all of these different latches that we had earlier. Plug in that at the bottom, plug in that there, and we're good. She's happy, comfortable, parked, and locked. Done. Another beep just to finish things off. What a car, what a drive, what an experience, and what an exciting time knowing what the guys at Maranello are cooking up to come next in this fabulous lineage. It is a huge thanks to 458 Destroyer for the opportunity to drive that again today, having been lucky enough to drive plenty of the cars from this collection. It's unbelievable, really exciting, and I'm going to grab the keys as well to something else. So stay tuned for that coming soon. For today though, the LaFerrari has a very, very big place in my heart. What a car. Absolute cracking machine. So much fun, so crazy, so much emotion and experience. And what comes next is presumably only going to be better. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I appreciate your support an awful lot, and I will see you again very soon. Cheers.